Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. It's Amiibo here. Today we're doing another episode of Nintendo Switch games that you should consider buying before they get expensive. Let's get into it. Alrighty, folks, welcome back. I hope the day is treating you well. Today I wanted to talk about more games that you might want to consider buying before they get expensive, because for one reason or another, as we'll talk about throughout this video, I think there's a good chance they actually end up being kind of pricey, and if not, taking away values from this, taking away the collector brain stuff. These are just good games. These are good recommendations I have for you on some Switch games that you should add to your collection. Now, later on in this video, we're going to do a bigger spotlight on the Ys series, because Ys X Nordics is actually out, I think, tomorrow when you're watching this. I've been playing the demo of that. I actually played through the demo. It's like an 8-hour demo, by the way. You should definitely check out that. But Ys has been on the mind. I think last episode I did a big breakdown on the Legend of Heroes series, so today we'll be doing Ys as well as some other things. We'll start off with some first-party Nintendo, though. Yes, I still have some first-party Nintendo games and recommendations for you in terms of what I think it might end up being kind of rare. Now, this first one is a game that I actually don't particularly love. Like, I had fun with it for the couple, maybe 5-6 hours I played it, but it is a game that came out earlier this year, and I really just don't know if it'll stick around that long, right? And it might become kind of pricey later on. We see with the Wii version, one of them is actually, I think, like $30-40, which for Wii is a little uncommon. But first up, we have Endless Ocean Luminous here. This came out back in May, and this is the revival of the Endless Ocean series. This is a series that started back on the Wii with the original game, and then, of course, it had a sequel in Blue World. This is a series of games I really never thought Nintendo would bring back, but here we are in the year of our Lord 2024, and Nintendo did revive the Endless Ocean series, and this one got like mixed reviews. I would say, like, it's in like the 60s, I believe. It is just a very kind of calming, chill game where you go on these scuba diving expeditions, you analyze fish, and that's basically it. Now, this one has a big multiplayer focus. I have not played it since it launched back in May. I'm not sure how active a game like this is, because we know for a fact it sold under 1 million copies, because if it did, Nintendo would have reported it, which is why I'm mentioning it. This game sold poorly. I think that's safe to say, or at least compared to other Nintendo titles. That's why I talk about Another Code of Recollection, and I talk about Famicom Detective Club. If a Nintendo first-party game sells under 1 million copies, usually that's not a good sign. And with Endless Ocean Luminous right now, you can get it for under MSRP. I believe that it cost $49.99, so it wasn't like a full price title. But right now, according to Price Running, it's going for about $37, which I would still say is, like, for the quality of the game, it's maybe a little high. But also, if you're a Nintendo collector, you want to get more experience with these lesser-known Nintendo series, this is one to maybe buy before it gets out of stock, because I really don't think they'll reprint it. It reviewed not great. It just did not have a lot of buzz. I just can't see them really reprinting this game ever. Whereas with Famicom Detective Club, even, I mean, that game had a lot of buzz. Like, people were really talking about that game when it came out, I feel like, at least in my circles. With Endless Ocean, though, it kind of just came and went. So I would say if you're a Nintendo collector and you want to kind of try more Nintendo franchises that people don't really talk about, this is one to buy before it goes out of stock. And, in 5 years, when Switches aren't even in stores anymore, becomes like one of the rarer first-party Switch titles. Next up is another relatively cheap one. It's a remake of a 3DS game, and that is Mopia. Now, according to Price Charting, you can get this bad boy for about $30, I believe, which I think is actually the perfect price for this game. If you are all familiar with Tomodachi Life on the Nintendo 3DS, you kind of know what you're getting into with this game, but this is more of like an actual game. Tomodachi Life is like a sim thing where you kind of just analyze your Mii creatures in their little hotels. Miitopia is an actual, like, turn-based RPG. I would say it's not the most in-depth turn-based RPG. If you're buying this game, you're buying it for the humor of having you and your friends as Miis interacting with all these different characters, because, for me, like, I just added a bunch of celebrities, I added all my friends and family, right, and just seeing them interact, and also, like, have, like, these, like, love triangles and stuff is, like, really, really quite funny. So Miitopia, I don't think it's, like, the greatest game in terms of, like, gameplay. It's not the most in-depth or anything. It's a pretty basic turn-based RPG. It also, I think, went a little long. I think it took me maybe like 15 hours, I want to say, to beat it. And that's with using auto battle. But there is auto battle if you don't really care about the gameplay and you just want to see your Miis in these funny situations in this fantasy world. You got like the Fat King. I think for me, that was SpongeBob. SpongeBob became the king in this game. And then I had one of my friends was like the dark villain of this game, which is it's a lot of fun. If you are someone who likes like D&D or something, you're just like having interpretations of you and your friends, but also like celebrities and stuff, and other characters from like movies and things like that in a game, and just kind of seeing how they interact. This is a lot of fun. It's a really funny game, and, it's a remake of a 3DS game as well. So on 3DS, it was pretty expensive for a while there, I believe, back in, like, 2022. That has come down a lot ever since this release, of course, and since the 3DS market has kind of plateaued, I would say. And if you want to play it there, I guess you could. However, I will say, Miitopia on Switch is actually a really great remake. So it was done by Grezzo, the team that is kind of doing Zelda now, 2D Zelda. They did Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask 3D, but then they also did Triforce Heroes, Link's Awakening, and now, of course, Echoes of Wisdom. In between Link's Awakening and Echoes of Wisdom, they actually remade Miitopia. And it's a full remake. They remade the game, including, most importantly, they added a very, very in-depth Mii Maker to this game. The Mii Maker in this game is basically limitless. If you remember back in, like, 2012, if you were on Call of Duty Black Ops 2 back then, you know the emblem editor and like how crazy people were getting? It's kind of like that, but like on a whole nother level where people are really getting in depth with what you can do. There's just a ton more options here, like actual like the Mii Maker is pretty basic, but this is like really, really in depth. So the designs can get kind of crazy, and there is a whole QR code system. What I did was I went to a website that had a ton of like celebrity Miis and all that, and like characters like SpongeBob, like I mentioned, and I just downloaded a ton of Miis before I even started my adventure. So that way, when I was playing through, I didn't have to stop and like make a Mii every time. So it's a little bit of prep work to get in. You got to add all your Miis first, but I really enjoyed this game for what it was. I think this is actually a pretty underrated Switch game. Even if the combat isn't the most, complicated or in-depth, it is a very funny game, and I personally really enjoyed my time with it. All right, this next game is one that I'm really surprised that Nintendo did not publish and call something completely different, and that is Fashion Dreamer. So this is Style Savvy. This is just Style Savvy. I believe, like, mechanically, like, I'm sure I'll get Style Savvy fans in the comments being like, no, it's not Style Savvy. They changed some stuff. It's by the developers of Style Savvy, Sen Sophia, and Style Savvy is a Nintendo property. That's a Nintendo IP that was very prominent on the DS and 3DS. The reason I mentioned this game is that, well, one, it actually is pretty high quality. I admittedly don't have that much experience with Style Savvy or Fashion Dreamer as games, but I did play a little bit of Fashion Dreamer, and from what I could tell, it seemed like a pretty high quality, modern version of Style Savvy. I know there were some complaints. I'm not sure exactly what they were from, like, hardcore Style Savvy fans, but having an entry on Switch is just kind of nice, and the thing with Style Savvy on the 3DS is, maybe it's due to release timing. I know one of those games came out very late in the life cycle of that console. Style Savvy games on 3DS are pretty expensive. I mean, even the first game, which came out back in, I think, 2012, Trendsetters, that's like MSRP still. But then you also have, I can't remember the name of the sequel. It's like a girl in like a blue background. That one's like actually pretty expensive. I think it's Fashion Forward. That's what it is. Fashion Forward. Style Savvy Fashion Forward. That's like a $100 game on 3DS. So the reason I'm mentioning Fashion Dreamer is because, I mean, I guess comparably, this is still kind of late in the Switch's life cycle. If this came out back in November of last year, so 2023, certainly more than halfway through, and it's pretty good. It's your only Style Savvy-esque game available on the Switch, and it definitely has that like first-party Nintendo flair, I would say. It feels like a game that Nintendo was going to publish, and then for some reason, they just didn't, right? Like, it feels like it should have just been a new Style Savvy game from Nintendo. So if you're interested in, dressing up some pretty girls, this one might be for you. Next up, I wanted to highlight a pair of Mega Man collections. So, of course, Mega Man on Switch has just been basically collections. You also have Mega Man 11, but for the most part, it's just been a ton of collections for the series. However, as we've gone on, they've started getting more and more niche. So you have the Legacy collections of all the NES games as well as like 7 through 10, right? Then you have the X collection, which is all pretty popular games. But then you get to these later games that I feel like there's simply going to be less copies of these, although actually maybe that's not entirely true because I believe both of these sold pretty well, but these are kind of maintaining their value a lot better than those first two collections, and maybe because it's all in the cartridge. If you remember the first two Mega Man Legacy collections, you had to like download some stuff, but these are all in the cartridge. So first up is the Mega Man 0 and ZX Legacy Collection. This includes Mega Man Zeros 1 through 4, as well as ZX and ZX Advance, which I believe those are DS games, right? These are all made by Inti Creates. I'm pretty sure all 6 of them, and they are fantastic. If you like that classic Mega Man X style gameplay, this is just more of that. And this one, I want to say this sold over 1 million copies, so maybe it won't get too pricey. But I mean, this is one I have definitely seen more maintaining its value more than the other two, if that makes sense. But then more importantly, the reason I wanted to mention Mega Man at all in this video is the Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection. This one is still going for like $50 or $60 new, so it basically has maintained MSRP this entire time, which is weird. Mega Man 0, I didn't mention it, but I put it up on screen. That price is like $28, $30. So like that's about what you expect. But the Battle Network Legacy Collection, which includes a ton of games, it's volumes 1 and 2 of the Legacy Collections. It includes 10 Battle Network games. This one has not gone down at all. And I know at one point it was out of stock on most retailers, and I think they might have reprinted it, but it has not come down, which I find very weird. Of course, Battle Network is like the tactical RPG sub-series of Mega Man that I have not had much experience with. I played a little bit of the first one on Wii U Virtual Console, but like I didn't grow up with these games or anything, so I can't speak too much on the quality, but I know that people love them, and to have such a jam-packed collection like this with all 10 games or most of the games in the series, like, this is one that like I would keep my eye on. If you're a fan of Mega Man, if you're interested in getting into the Battle Network series, this is one that I feel like it's niche, right? I mean, Mega Man's already niche, but you put a tactical RPG into that equation, and I feel like that should be even more niche. But also, I believe Capcom said this sold over 1 million copies. I'm pretty sure now. We don't know what the split is between digital and physical, but this is one I would say definitely keep your eye on if you're interested. Okay, so this next game actually just released back at the end of August. However, it seems like it's already above MSRP. Now, when I was looking, it looks like you can get it on like Best Buy, I'm pretty sure. I think it's in stock there. And it's certainly on stock on PlayStation, but that is Gundam Breaker 4. So, of course, this is the newest Gundam game from Bandai Namco. If you are into mech combat games, I haven't played too much of this one, but I know based on what I've seen, I will like it. I played a ton of Megaton Musashi Wired earlier this year from level 5, and I really enjoyed that. So I've been trying to make time for this one because this one looks even better, frankly. As someone who doesn't really have much experience with actual Gundam, like as the IP, the Gundam series, I haven't watched any of the anime, I haven't read any of the manga or anything, I haven't collected any Gunpla. This game looks really fun. It looks like there's a ton of customization options, and most importantly for this video, according to price charting, it's going for above MSRP. Now, I think that is kind of inaccurate, but that's already happening less than 2 months after the game released. It's possible it gets a full reprint, but I would say don't wait on this one, you know? If it's already going above MSRP and it's a Gundam game, which is already like a very niche thing, I feel like this one might end up going, maybe it won't go too much higher, maybe it'll stay around like $80, but that's still, I mean, that's still $20 above MSRP, right? And, you know, looking at Metacritic, there's not enough Switch reviews to make a statement on that, but PS5, based on 18 critic reviews, is at a 76, and the PC version, based on 8 critic reviews, is at an 80. So, I mean, that's one of those things, right? Like, I know people look at a 7 out of 10 and say, like, oh, this is a bad game. I think it's so niche that, like, this is one of those things, if you are into Gundam, if you are into mech combat games, a 76 is, like, realistically like a 9. Like, you're going to get a ton of time out of this game because there is so much customization. And like I said, from what I've seen, it just looks like a lot of fun. And most importantly to this video, yeah, it's seemingly going above MSRP already, which is just kind of crazy to think about. Okay, this next one I actually just ordered recently, so I don't have it on hand. However, this is one that came out back in February of this year, and once again is already seemingly going above that MSRP price, according to price charting, or at the very least, it's out of stock in most places. I had to buy a copy off of eBay because it wasn't in stock on Amazon or Best Buy, and that is Sheeran The Wanderer, The Mystery Dungeon of Serpent Coil Island. So, just right off the bat, I have to say, Metacritic has this game at an 84, based on 24 reviews for Switch, which is like, that's pretty freaking good. If you are not familiar with Sheeran The Wanderer, I believe this is Sheeran The Wanderer 6. This is Mystery Dungeon. This is what Mystery Dungeon, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon is based off of. But this is like the original like DNA of what that is by Spike Chunsoft. And this game apparently is like actually really, really good. So I'm excited to play this. I have not played a Mystery Dungeon game really since I think Super Mystery Dungeon came out on the 3DS back in 2015, and I've heard nothing but good things about this game. Like I've seen some people saying like this is like a Game of the Year contender for them. Obviously, it's not going to be nominated at Jeff Keighley at the Jeff Keighley's events, but Sheeran The Wanderer 6 coming in, getting an 84 on Metacritic, and then also being this like seemingly kind of rare game out the gate. This is when I would also say maybe it's possible they reprint it, but maybe it won't really go much below the current price charting price, which has it at about $48 to like $53 for a used or new copy. Because like I said, I was trying to find it and it's sold out most websites. Maybe that's just like a timing thing. Maybe I just looked at the wrong time, but this one is actually seeming pretty hard to get already, and it just came out earlier this year. Next up, let's talk about some NIS America Furyu developed games, starting off with Cryar here. This one came out a couple years ago, and for a while there, it was actually pretty pricey. It was above MSRP. Now, I believe at some points, maybe it was VGP, maybe it was one of those kind of websites, they reprinted it, and it has come down a little bit. It's still like a $55 game complete, or, you know, sealed, so which is, you know, most games don't do that, right? And this is an older game. I think this came out back in like 2020 maybe. I'm not quite too sure, but it was a couple years ago at least. And this is an action RPG developed by Furyu, which I really want to focus on right now because people have always asked me like do more in-depth NIS America stuff. I might do like a full video. If you guys want to see a full NIS America video or like a full Square Enix games published video, let me know in the comments down below. Those would be very long videos, but that might be kind of fun. I might have to reiterate some ground here as I'm talking about like Cryar and Ys, but let me know. But yeah, Cryar is an action RPG I've always had my eye on. It's not the most well-reviewed game. In fact, let me check here on in real time. What is the Metacritic for Cryar here? Yeah, I mean, the Metacritic for the first game is a 67, so not the highest reviewed, but if you like just kind of like random anime-styled action RPGs, this is one to keep an eye on. But they also did a sequel just a year ago, I believe, and then is Cry Machina. This is a funny one because I had actually bought it last year in the Best Buy Buy 2 Get 1 sale, and I was like excited to play it. I was excited to try these out, but my copy got lost in the mail, and then Best Buy just had to refund me, which was really annoying. But when they redid the Best Buy 2 get one sale earlier this year, I decided, you know what, I need to get this game before it goes up or whatever, because I do want to play. I love the art on this, by the way. What cool imagery. But this came out last year. This one's going for like 40 right now. It's still in stock most places, I believe. But this is one to keep an eye on. It's just a sequel to Cryar. But then Furyu also published a new game, or released a new game published by NIS America back in September that similarly did not get very good reviews. I played the demo for it. I thought the demo was fun. I think I would like playing the full game, and that is Rayna here. If you remember, this one popped up, I believe, in one of the directs earlier this year, and it looks really cool. There's a whole like World Ends With You collab in this game. Like there's characters from the World Ends With You in this game, which is crazy. But this one is a very stylish, looks very cool, but it got really bad reviews, or like really middling reviews, I should say. I think it's like a 50 on Metacritic. Yeah, on Metacritic, the game has a 57 for the PS5 version, which I imagine would probably be better than the Switch version because it probably runs a little bit better. But the user score is generally unfavorable at 4.6 stars, or 4.6 out of 10. So that's pretty bad. It seems to be a very case-by-case basis. I have seen people like defending the Furyu RPGs, these games like Cryar, Cry Machina, and Rayna. I think Monarch is another one by them. That was more like a Persona clone. I don't know. I think it's one of those things. There's demos for these games, so like check it out if you are interested. I like the style of them though. I like the art styles. I like the art direction. I like the setting of Rayna, especially this like Tokyo setting. And I need to give these more time. I need to see. Apparently they're very mid though, so I guess go into it knowing that. But we have a history with the first Cryar game of these games kind of going up in price, despite them maybe not being the highest quality. Because as I said, I mean, Cryar was like, at one point it was like an $80 game, and I was like, whoa, what's going on here? But then it got reprinted, and then yeah, Cry Machina like 40, and then Rayna just came out, so it doesn't really have any prices to show. But I imagine that'll probably stay around MSRP because NIS America, they've been very good about reprinting stuff recently, but also their games are so niche. Like, how many physical copies of Rayna sold in America? Like, how many copies actually exist, if that makes sense? It might go on sale from now. Like, it might go on sale around Black Friday. Wait for that, right? Check out Black Friday. But after that, it might not even stay in stock, I imagine. All right, now to close off this video, I want to focus on some more Falcom RPGs. So, of course, Ys X coming out tomorrow, like I said, so that's a pretty big deal. I'm excited for this game, even though I'm very busy right now with Meta 4 and Mario and Luigi coming up and Call of Duty coming out. So, like, I'm not sure when I'll exactly make time for it. Hopefully, like, late November, early December, I can squeeze the full playthrough in. Because, like I said, I played through the demo, and I was really enjoying it. But before we talk about Ys X or Ys 9 and all that, I do want to give a shout-out to another game that I do not have on hand right now, but I'm very intrigued by, and that is Tokyo Xanadu EX Plus. This is a Vita game from 2015 that they have brought over to the Switch. I believe maybe it was Axis that published it, not NIS America. From what I've seen of this game, it looks pretty similar to Ys. Like, whereas Trails has some more like turn-based combat, Ys is obviously like just an action RPG. This looks like a modern Tokyo setting Ys. So that's what I picked up from it, from the little bit I've seen of it. I wanted to shout it out though because Falcom RPGs, people seem to just buy these games. They also seem very niche, but also like they have their niche. So like the Legend of Heroes series, like I've talked about, those usually go up in price. Tokyo Xanadu right now is like $45, $50. I'm not sure when it came out on Switch exactly. Maybe it looks okay. That just came out in July, so that's recent. That's a recent release from them, and that might be one to keep an eye out on if you're interested in some nice action RPG goodness. But let's talk about the Ys series now, because I wanted to kind of spotlight them in this video. So starting off, the first Ys game that released on the Nintendo Switch is Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana, or Dana. I assume Dana. It's Dana for sure. But this is the first one that has ever released on a Nintendo platform, I believe, unless maybe there was like Ys 1 and 2 might have been on DS or something. But this one came out back in 2018 and is going for about $55 right now. This is a sealed copy, which price charting has at about $70. This one has been reprinted recently. VGP did reprint this back in April, I believe. That's when I picked it up, because at one point it was going for like $90. Now, something to note about the Ys series. I know this is a Switch video. If you are interested in really any of the Falcom games, and you have a PS5 and you want to play them on the PS5, because let's be real here, you know, Switch collector to Switch collector, Switch gamer to Switch gamer, the PS5 version of these games are going to run better, obviously. The Ys games, as well as the Legend of Heroes games on PS5, I did not know this, are way more expensive. I mean, even like Trails to Azure, which, you know, it's like an $80 Switch game, it's like a $140 PS5 game. So that kind of goes for a lot of this stuff. If you're interested in playing these games in like the best format possible, maybe go for the PS5 versions. But yeah, Ys-A, I played a little bit of this one. I really enjoyed it. I was playing of it, but I put it on hold because I knew I wouldn't have time to finish it before Ys 10 comes out. So from what I've played, this one is pretty fun. But then we also have Ys 9 Monstrum Nox. This is the packed edition. I think it's the only edition that released of this game. This one's a little bit cheaper right now, maybe in the like $40 range. I think I got this copy off of eBay for like 30 plus shipping. I've heard from Ys fans this one is a lot worse than 8. I don't know if it's the setting or what, but I've heard that Ys 9 is not as good as Ys 8, which is interesting. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe I think it might be the setting or something. I'm not sure if it's a gameplay thing, but still an Ys game on Switch. Wanted to shout that one out. And then the final one we have here before Ys 10 releases is Ys Origin. This one I believe released between Ys 7 and Ys 8. This is a very different looking game, let's say, because Ys 8 and Ys 9, like those are bigger budget, 3D action games. This one I believe might have been a PSP game that Its-A-Mii had brought over to the Switch, so looks graphically very different. I was very daunted when getting into the Ys series because there's so many games and they're all like 40-hour games, right? They're all big 40-hour RPGs. Not entirely true, because I was looking into the new one that's coming out next year, the remake of The Oath of Felghana, I believe it's called. That's coming to PS5 and Switch early next year. That's like a 15-hour game. And then Ys Origin is like a 20-hour game, apparently, according to How Long to Beat. So I'm very happy because like that's manageable, right? It's not like a 60-hour epic thing. It's like 30 hours is still a long time, but that's manageable. But yeah, Ys Origin was actually distributed by Limited Run, so this one is the cheapest, I think, of the 3 that are out right now. So Ys 8 is the most expensive, then Ys 9, then Ys Origin. But from what I've played of Ys 8 as well as Ys 10, this is a series that I really enjoy, and I know I will enjoy more as I get into. And then, of course, Ys 10 coming out in a couple days. That one hopefully kind of catches the zeitgeist. I would love to see Ys become a bigger name, a household name in RPGs. That'd be very cool. But we'll see. It might still end up being kind of niche. And if you see a good price on that during Black Friday, might be worth picking up because it'll still be in stores. So yeah, that is going to do it for today's video. I wanted to focus on Ys in this video as well as just all the other great games I talked about. Or actually, I guess, realistically, I talked about a lot of games that are maybe kind of mid, right? Like all the Furyu RPGs that I hear a lot of people talk about, but also have middling review scores, But that is going to do it. Of course, if you have any recommendations to be featured in the next episode of the series, I would love to hear them down in the comments below. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch collecting, content, coverage, all that fun stuff. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames. Check out my other channel at BoTalksGames where I cover Nintendo news. And until next time, folks, peace.